at you from the Exodus headquarters in Ohio. Let's jump right into today's episode.
Alrighty, everyone. We are live with another episode of Trail Cam Radio, and we are mixing things up a bit and covering something that hasn't really been covered before. And honestly, probably going to ruffle a few feathers. There's going to be some people that have varying opinions, and it's going to be interesting. So basically the topic of this is why hunters from high-pressure states are better hunters, and we're going to be talking about some great hunters that have come out of high-pressure states and have relocated to lower-pressure states, and just kind of the thought process on why we can back that statement up. And I don't know, you ready to dive into this?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that I think people are probably always thinking about, but maybe have never conceptualized the full conversation and what it entails about, this guys in high pressure states that are really, really hardcore whitetail fanatics that are taking the leap of faith and moving into lower pressured states with a target rich environment to kind of pursue their passion of killing big deer. I just know, like, off the top of my head, when you brought this up, on the ground that I hunt, the public ground that I hunt in the southern part of the state, I immediately, like, some of the best hunters that came to mind that are also down there hunting the same type of terrain, I started thinking about where they're from, and a lot of them are from Michigan. So, like, to prove...
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I've put some thought into this. It's no different than, like, someone who's really good at coding moving to Silicon Valley.
Right.
That's where the opportunities are.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm excited to cover this, and I know I know some people are gonna be butthurt, I feel, but
right.
These so let's just dive into it. So first off, what are some of the high pressure states? This is for hunters in general. So this
licensed sold.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, New York, Wisconsin, Ohio, and that's per square mile.
Yeah. So that's deer density.
Yeah.
For the acreage of...
Well, no. This is just licenses sold, like hunters per square mile in those states.
Gotcha. Okay.
So PA, I don't think that's probably...
So Michigan's not even on the list.
For licenses sold per square mile. Yeah, which is... But we'll get to that.
Right.
We'll get to that.
There's a twist.
We'll get to that. Obviously, PA, I mean, that comes to mind. I mean, that's why the great American outdoor show is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because it is so... It's such a rich heritage there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm from Illinois, born and raised, and when you go there, like, these people have a true endearment for hunting in comparison to the folks that.
And
that
it's not just whitetail hunting. I think that's the big note there. Like, there's guys that are fur bearers that are trapping. There's small game hunters. There's predator hunting going on, bear hunting. Like, it's like you said, a very, very, very deep traditional hunting heritage. Coming from that state.
Yeah, and everyone has a hunt camp. It seems like.
Yes.
And
a lot of camps.
I would assume here and even Illinois, Iowa, everywhere. It's not necessarily they have hunt camps. I know there's some, but most of them's like they're hunting the back 40.
Right.
That they have some sort of
right.
relationship with.
Right.
So
right.
That is the high pressure states for hunters per square mile. Now let's get into bow hunting density, which might surprise people a little bit. And these are all stats based on the QDMA too. So and they're a little outdated. I want to say it was from 2013. So number 1, still Pennsylvania. So, number 2, Maryland. 3, Ohio, the Ohio State.
I'm telling you, like, people think, like, giant deer around every tree in Ohio, which there's a lot of big deer here, but the pressure is, like, people don't think of Ohio as a high-pressure state, but I can tell you. Like, you were watching footage off an old SD card of a camera that I was using to self-film with last year. Like, there's people everywhere in the woods. Yeah. I mean... It's just like any other state. The problem, well, that's what I was going to get to. The problem with Ohio is the non-resident fees are, in my opinion, I mean, I'm a homer, so they're way too low. And it is like it's the gateway to the Midwest. So it's like the first stop. Anyone coming from the Northeast, Southeast, anywhere in the East Coast, like it's the first stop into the Midwest. People are killing giant deer every year. So it's like You know, there's a lot of public land
Yeah.
in Ohio, unlike Illinois or some, Iowa maybe, some of those other Midwestern states. So it's like that's the perfect stop for
There's opportunities.
Right.
It saves you, 7-8 more hours of traveling.
Right.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And if you just look at the population density of the U.S., it's heavily in the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's the Oregon Trail to whitetails.
Yeah, that's a good.
That's St. Louis right there.
Yeah,
So they see the arch of those national
yeah,
forest lines.
that's a good way to put it. The only thing that saves Ohio, as keeping it a premier big buck state, is it's a $1 state.
That is good.
And the structure of the gun season.
Yep, I would agree with that. Number 4, Michigan, everyone's favorite everyone's favorite state. So we looked at analytics on the podcast, YouTube channel, website, and Pennsylvania and Michigan were some of the most popular ones, and then Wisconsin wasn't far behind. So we know a lot of people from PA and Michigan tune in, and honestly, just a lot of people from PA and Michigan consume whitetail content. Like, they're whitetail nuts.
Yeah.
And I feel like we can get into this later, but they got to pull out a different bag of tricks in comparison to many other states and locations. So, number 5 is New York, then New Jersey. Greg Litzinger, New Jersey, New York. He hunts that area.
Yep.
Wisconsin, a lot of heritage there as well.
Yep.
And then the list kind of goes on from there. But one quick note, though, Texas has the most amount of hunters, but the state is ginormous.
Yeah.
And there's like no public there, so I would assume some of those, I'm sure the public there gets pounded because they have the most amount of hunters. And I assume it's obviously a lot of private ground, a lot of big money, old money, oil money.
Yep.
Just have 10,000 acre
big
ranches.
Yeah, cattle operations, whatnot.
So I feel kind of bad because Texas is somewhat excluded from this list, but if you're an average
density.
Joe, but if you're an average Joe, I feel like there probably isn't necessarily a ton of opportunities. Yeah.
I think Tyler and Casey, the guys from the Element podcast, said, I don't know if it was on air, like one of the times we were chatting with them, we talked a little bit about the public opportunities there being limited, and how hard it could be. So
you would think that, Texas has no state taxes, so it's like maybe that has something to do with it, or I don't know. It seems like a lot of these. Some public ground is just donated. Like, what if one of those big ranches, 10,000 acre ranch was donated?
Well, I think there's a lot of old money there too. So it's not like, like Silicon Valley, like an area that just has exploded. I think that there's probably a lot of old oil money and old cattle money that, the property and land has been in families for generations, and they're carrying on that
even
heritage.
like the land grab too.
Right.
That was Mexico at one point. So
yeah.
So obviously a lot of land has been acquired, and I'm sure it was.
Was that part of the Louisiana Purchase?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if we fought for that or if we bought it off Mexico. I think we just pushed back Mexico. We'd have to look that up.
Testing our history.
Yeah.
American history skills there.
So kind of the big factor, and what we alluded to, was these people are hunting in very dense areas with a ton of hunters, less opportunities. Everyone and their brother is trying to be better than the next person, and they have to pull out the bag of tricks. And I think for the people who consistently get that done are probably really good deer hunters. In comparison, I would not deem myself as a really great deer hunter. If I went to Pennsylvania, it'd probably be multiple years before I kill a deer. But where I'm at, it's a lot easier. There's more opportunities. And it's what I'm used to as well. So I guess kind of the rationale or thought process is people that are getting it done in these difficult areas are good.
Yeah.
And they figure out how to get it done.
And to that point, those guys might not be killing Boone and Crockett caliber deer every year, but they're probably still killing the
biggest deer that
or
they
biggest
know of.
deer in the area. It's
relative.
It's all relative. To what kind of class, age category, or age class animals that you have access to. Like, you can't kill booners where booners don't live.
That's the biggest hurdle, and that's where you see. We'll get into the list of people who moved from those high pressure states to other states, and guess what? When they moved, they went from killing really good deer in their difficult state. They move, and then they go to killing booners. So,
yeah, they're still killing the best deer in the area.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So I just think, obviously, the sheer amount. It's like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It's like a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's like I don't want to give the illusion that it's easy there, but I think that would probably be somewhat easier. Like
Mhm.
the talent pool in those states are.
I got a quick question on the density numbers. You pulled those stats up from QDMA. Those include, I mean, that's based off license sales, so those are resident, non-resident.
Mhm.
Did they also give stats on public land? So exclude.
They didn't. Not this particular study. I'm sure we could find it. That would be interesting. I would assume, like Pennsylvania, you can just get access if it's not posted.
Right.
And there's obviously public land opportunities. Ohio, there's a bunch. I
Mhm.
know it's overran, but that would be a correlation to that as well. Like that's why there's so many license sales, because there's more accessibility. Like, and Midwest states where there's not as much, you got to rely on getting permission. If you don't feel comfortable going, trying to ask for it, that's a big hurdle.
Right. I think this not necessarily off topic, but the other interesting stat to look at, I think there would be population density of all those
Yes.
states to see the average size of a parcel that you could have access to. Because I know Ohio's I think they're 11th. I think we are the 11th most populated state in the union. So when you look, like Zach Fehrenbaugh, I think was talking about this at one point in time, the guy from the Hunting Public. When you look at a map of Iowa and you look at a map of Ohio, it's just the amount of roads.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how many big cities are scattered out through the
Yes,
state.
exactly.
In Iowa, there's more pigs than there are people. So that's a stat. So I don't think there's more pigs than people in Ohio.
No.
So, and I would assume there's probably like kind of funny stats for all, like there's probably more cattle in North Dakota or than there are people. So
Right.
if a state is like that, that's the one that you would want to be traveling to if you're trying to get away from people. But yeah, Ohio is actually the number 7 most populated state. All right, we'll go from the top. California has 40 million. Texas has 28 million people. Florida, number 3, 20 million. New York, number 4, 20 million roughly. And then a big dip, Pennsylvania has 12.8 million. Illinois, 12.8. 6 of it's which from Chicago.
Right.
And 7 is Ohio with 11.7.
So the interesting thing there to look at is all of those states you just listed have giant metropolitan areas other than Ohio.
Like Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania?
Philly, like you look
Pittsburgh, Philly, yeah.
I mean, you have Cleveland and Columbus.
What about Cincinnati?
And Cincinnati. But I don't consider those aren't major
No,
metropolitan areas.
or hubs of business.
Right. Like California, obviously Los Angeles, Illinois, you have Chicago. New York, you have New York City. Texas, you have
Austin. You have a lot of
bunch
Austin,
of
Dallas, San Antonio.
Yeah, Houston. Bunch of big cities there. So yeah, Pennsylvania. We'll say Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Yeah, I think, and those are two of the most difficult states for whitetail hunting.
Right.
So that's
right.
Why is there so many people that live in rural America in Ohio and Pennsylvania?
Well, I think during the Industrial Revolution, obviously the North, it was the North, and a lot of the mills and whatnot were built from, like, you look at lake, around water, basically. So you have Lake Erie, you have the Great Lakes, and then the river system, the Ohio River, the Allegheny coming through Pittsburgh. So if you drew a line of, like, go back 50 or 60 years ago in U.S. steel production, like it is like Cleveland to Pittsburgh, like that is, now it's called the Rust Belt because it's all shut down, closed down, old mills, pretty depressed or poverty-stricken area really now. But I think that's what that is from, in my opinion.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, that's I would agree with that. So let's dive into some hunters that come to mind that have moved from or have come from, these high pressure states. So jumping around a little bit, Fred Bear, one of the goats, if you will.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the godfather of modern bow hunting, probably.
Yep. And then diving into a little more legacy, Theodore Roosevelt. Obviously, he came from a bunch of money anyways.
Right.
But just to show that heritage is, instilled for many generations. Then we have, let's get into some modern people that people will know for sure. Right off the top, Dan Infalt, DeQuisto, Wisconsin.
Yep.
and that was number 4 for licensed sales, and actually for bow hunting density, it was number 6, I want to say. So that's one example. Jeff Sturgis from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's back up a little bit too. Most of those people, so Jeff moved from Michigan to Wisconsin
Mm-hmm.
to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
The DeQuistos moved, I don't know, they moved to Illinois and Iowa, or did they remain in Wisconsin? And then
Well, they're from the Milwaukee area, but they do not live there now. But that's
Correct.
where they're from.
Do you know if they moved from Wisconsin to Illinois when Illinois was? No, they just hung out of state.
I'm not 100% certain on that.
Anyways, they ended up in Iowa.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
And then even Wetzel Brothers, we talked about those folks.
Yep.
And Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And
Dude, they don't get enough credit.
they don't.
For what they did in the 70s and 80s.
Well, we tried Googling them, and it was pretty limited.
Yeah. We need to. They're in Illinois, correct?
That was Pennsylvania.
They're from Pennsylvania.
I don't know.
Grew up in Pennsylvania, but I think they're one of the cases that
They moved to a whitetail state.
moved to a whitetail state.
Yeah. I don't know.
But we need to get them on the podcast if that's something that you'd be up to. They're older gentlemen now, but just.
Well, with that being said, there hasn't been a lot of people that have had the chance to listen to them on a podcast type format.
No.
So that's. If you run a podcast and you're listening to this, don't try to steal.
Yeah.
We call dibs.
Yeah. Don't be a douche.
So those are just a couple that come to mind. I know that list could be much longer. We kind of threw this list together yesterday. So.
Do you mention the guys from Michigan?
Oh yeah, Eberhart, Sturgis, Prignitz. He moved to Iowa.
Yep.
Eberhart, he travels a lot.
Yep.
And he's he's a legend in Michigan to some degree. So and he travels to hunt bigger whitetails.
Yeah.
So I'm sure.
And then there's a ton of guys that we don't know
that's
who they are, and they're local legends killing
big
deer in their area. Yeah.
And they could have moved from another. I think there's more a lot of people that do that. Oh, even Mark Kenyon, he's from Michigan.
Mark Kenyon's from Michigan, yeah.
And
he had a heck of a season last year.
Gosh, yeah.
He killed good deer everywhere he was. Nebraska, Kansas, what did he kill last year in Michigan? 140-inch, 150-inch deer?
I thought it was bigger than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
He killed It
was really big, which it's like the proving grounds. If you can make it in these tough states, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, it's the hard knocks of whitetails, really.
Mm-hmm. So that's why we think that a lot of really good deer hunters come from there. And it's almost like the cream rises to the top in those tough states too, even regionally probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then those people that are venturing out. And then if you're that fascinated about whitetails and you had to work that hard, you're probably going to venture out to kill bigger deer.
What do you think it is about guys from Michigan and Pennsylvania? Because those are the two states that everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, Wisconsin's kind of thrown in there sometimes, but when people talk about hunting pressure, everyone's Michigan and Pennsylvania.
It might be somewhat cultural. If everyone complains about the same thing, it's trying to think of an example of something that people complain about, but they've never really even experienced. Some of those people that are probably complaining about pressure probably don't even hunt, or maybe hunt 1 or 2 times a year, and they're complaining about pressure. So it maybe it just fosters.
Yeah, people like to complain about things. Yeah.
So I heard so and so complain about it. I'm going to complain about it too.
Right.
But statistically, it is very clear that it's tough, and even trade shows too. There's people that we run into that kill big deer, good deer. But the common thing that everyone says, it's so pressure. Where are you from? And I say Illinois, and every single time,
right.
Or even Ohio, they're we make, and that what they say is we make a trip down to Ohio every year.
Yeah.
Which makes that, shows that case right there.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that is the case. I think people complain no matter, especially hunting. Everyone complains about. No one's ever happy. No one is. Well, hear me out on this. No one is fully happy on their current hunting situation. No.
Dude, I'm happy.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of, all right, the most people that.
I talk about, public mishaps and whatnot, but I'm never am I? Maybe I'm.
You complain about pressure a lot, yeah.
Really? Maybe you. No, you're probably right, because on the phone, you personally, maybe not publicly.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, I mean,
But I guess you're right. Yeah.
everyone
Yeah, I complain.
even
about
people who have a bunch of ground, they're like, oh, the neighbors, like it's always no one is 100% happy with their hunting situation. So
Yeah,
it's like, it
okay.
can never be perfect. So
Yeah.
that's probably part of it, and it's just maximized because the sheer number of hunters. But I mean, we kind of talked about this, and hopefully we're not talking too much in circles. But basically, like these folks are like when you guys like people, they walk further, they have to travel further. It's just like the whole 9 yards. I mean, for me, if I drive 25, 40 minutes to a spot, it's a lot easier for me to drive back home and take a break or do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent of someone from like Pennsylvania that drives all the way to Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, Wisconsin, like they drove there to do that for a week. That's all they have to do for a week, and I think that probably has to do with some of their success as well.
Yeah, I think just being in an area that's more dense with hunters, I think that there's the big thing that separates like the best from the mediocre hunters, or the mediocre hunters from the below average,
Mm-hmm.
and then below average from terrible,
Mm-hmm.
is when you have, and this is just I think human nature, but when you have 200 people in a room, and you're talking, there's a common interest there. Like let's say it's hunting. 50% of that room is going to have the same belief system on how, like, on tactics, how to, like, if they're archery hunters, you got to do this. You got to run cameras in a certain way. You got to scout in a certain way. You need to be able to hunt the rut in a certain way. Like, you don't want to hunt the law. Like, you don't, what is the law? Like, everyone has, like, all deer are nocturnal. 50% of those people are going to have that same cognitive thoughts about how they should handle situations in the woods. And then you probably have some guys who are a little more educated or have seen things in the field that separate them from the hunters. So maybe there's, I don't know, maybe there's 50 or 75 of those.
Out of the
people.
200?
Out of the 200. So
Okay.
you have 100 average guys, then you have 75 who are a little bit better, but then there's 25 guys who are just on another complete different level. Their work ethic, they're willing to walk further, they're willing to spend more time.
Being more creative,
thinking outside the box, not trying to look at deer hunting in a shoebox manner with a one-size-fits-all answer to every deer that they hunt. And those, to me, like that's what the thinking ability and the creative ability is what separates the top guys in those very dense states from, the crowds.
Yeah, let's just figure out how many. So in Pennsylvania, there's 20 hunters per square mile.
28?
20. So in a 10 square mile area, there you go. You got 200 people.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So 6,400 acres, there's 200 people hunting it.
Okay. That's 6,400 acres now. Like when you look at the
yeah.
density of the state, like the actual population density of the state and the homes and the roads, like how much huntable land is in that 6,400 acres?
You think, like in rural areas, do you think like 50, 60% is okay?
Yeah, I was going to say 60 to 70%. Yeah.
So let's say 60. So 60%.
So what is that?
Oh, God.
Bust out the calculators.
It's going to get ugly. 6,400 times 0.6. 3,840 acres is huntable. Out of that, with these rough figures.
3,900.
Yeah.
So you have 200 hunters and 3,900 acres.
Divided by, so that's 20 hunters per square mile. Or no, just kidding. 3,900.
Divided by 640.
Divided by 200. That's, I'm not a math guy. We went through the numbers earlier.
3,900 divided by 640.
It was, that's 6.
Okay, so that's 6 square miles of land.
For 200
Now divide,
200 hunters per 6 square. That's 33 hunters per square mile.
There you go.
Which is 33. So picture a mile square, like 640 acres. You're in the country. You drive around the block.
Yeah. There's 33 hunters there.
No wonder. Gosh. If that was me, I would be traveling out of state every single year. But hinge into the heritage aspect of it. Like you're gonna be the black sheep and leave the group that's been hunting together for 80, 90 years, generation after generation. Right. So I see that trap that falls into it. Yeah, I would complain.
And those are general numbers. Like gun season is probably higher, archery season's probably a little lower, but you know, for general purpose of this conversation.
So picture this opening day of rifle season. Everyone's going out for that. You would have 33 hunters probably in that 640.
Yeah.
And then I can't even. That's just a lot.
Let's do that same thing with Michigan, just to see.
Michigan for let's see. Let's do bow hunters for Michigan. Michigan, there is 6 bow hunters. We'll round up 6 bow hunters per square mile.
So 60. So 60 bow hunters per 10 square miles. Use that same 60%. So that's 3,900 acres.
Divided by 640.
Well, I guess it would be 6 divided by. Well, that's only 1. Or no, I'm sorry. It's 10.
So 10 hunters per square mile.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I feel like the habitat for whitetail might not be as great in Michigan than it is in Pennsylvania. Would you say? I'm just picturing like more swamp, like northern Michigan. I'm hinging this off of like Kevin when he went and he did that film, like up in the forest, and they saw like 2 deer.
Yeah.
Like this sounds like the deer density's low.
Yeah.
The hunter density's low is there as well, but so is the deer density.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the only. But I'm thinking like probably lower Michigan. It's still probably pretty dense.
Lower Michigan's flat and ag, swamp. Yeah.
So, what can we deduct from that? Is Michigan over complaining in comparison?
Like looking into those numbers, yeah, I would say like 10 hunters per square mile.
Well, how many bucks can you kill in Pennsylvania and how many bucks can you kill in Michigan?
I think they're both. Well, Pennsylvania's. I think you could kill 2. I think with an archery tag and a what? They don't have statewide regulations either. They have statewide APRs, I believe. But I think depending on what GMU you're in, seasons open at different times. They have bonus seasons. You got to apply for different tags. I'm lucky to be in Ohio because it's just like you buy a license, you buy a tag, that's it. Like state.
It's straightforward, yeah.
For the most part, I mean, yeah. Antlerless deer harvests are a little bit different, but
that's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. I feel bad for Pennsylvania people now. Could you imagine? Imagine you're like flying a drone on opening day and everyone was wearing their orange. Like, where does it like? The deer's just gonna hunker down and not move.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have to step on a deer to bump it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. So yeah, I would be traveling if I was.
But don't come to Ohio.
Well, that's what most of them do. That's probably why that number's so high as well, because they go.
I know. I have some friends living. I mean, Warren's. We're right now. We're pretty close to the state line. We're only 10 or 15 minute drive to the state line. So I have a bunch of friends that live in Pennsylvania. Some of the guys are pretty good hunters. Everyone that I know hunts both rifle and archery. Most of those guys are killing 130-inch deer, which is really good in their area. They're killing the best deer. But then there's also guys that I'm friends with. One guy in particular who hunts very hard, pretty serious about whitetails. Like has a private farm that he hunts that's not overpressured. It's I want to say it's like 800 acres. Oh, wow. There's 5 or 6 guys on it. 5 or 6 guys together. It's not leased. It's privately owned. He just family friend or whatever. And he has good deer on camera. Every year, he's like, these are the caliber deer I'm after. Yeah. And he hunts hard in October. Usually with limited opportunities. And by the 5th of November, he is in a mad panic
to kill a deer,
to kill a buck, because he has 10 days left. So their archery season closes down somewhere around the 14th, 15th, 16th, like right, peak breeding. their archery season closed, and he kills the first legal buck that walks underneath his stand every year. And he's happy with that because he filled his tag. But then a month later, I can't believe I shot. Next year, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to be more patient. Same story every year.
Yeah. Which just says that he must just get
he gets super excited. Guy's 100 miles an hour, like talks super fast. And you've probably met him a few times at Harrisburg. He comes to Harrisburg every year.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for everyone that hunts these states, though. Just in general.
Yeah. I mean, personally, like I said, I know hunting the big woods in the southern part of Ohio, some of that public, there's a guy. I think that I'm one of the harder working whitetail guys, like
on average.
Yeah, like an average. I'm not saying I'm the hardest, but there's only probably a handful of guys that I would say, guys like Josh Profit, guys that are really putting in a lot of work in hill country, big woods, that I kind of put myself with. But there's a guy from Michigan who is on another freaking level. I'm not gonna say his name just because, but a mutual friend of Sturgis's. Sturgis knows him as well. But it's like you might not get this, but like back in the day, guys would have like a little black book, like of phone numbers. Like that was you had like the little black book. Yeah. You carried it with you. Well, this dude has a little black book of stands. Like so, before Onyx, he had a little black book of like over 200 stand locations on this piece of public, and knew. I mean, you would talk to him about, hey, there's this piece over here off of this road. He's like, I think this. He's like, yeah. He'd send a screenshot of something like, I hunted here, I hunted this, I've been in this clear cut. Like, the dude puts on some miles. And to that point, 2 years ago, last time I was down there hunting, he showed up with a broken freaking leg and a cast, and was still down there putting miles on.
Wow. He's a killer.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. He is a killer. He's a killer. He's one of the guys, like, there's guys who are hunters that put themselves on deer and don't always, there's a blunder, something happens. The guy's a straight killer.
Stone cold.
Yeah.
So when he had that black book, was he marking other people's stands, or did he have two?
Oh, those were his. Like,
so he had like 200 stand locations?
Yes.
Ooh.
Based on terrain and sign, like historical sign and terrain.
And that was the Big Woods of Ohio?
Big Woods of Ohio.
Gotcha.
Yep.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like the average person, that's what I'm getting at, is because there's so many more, the outliers are so much more of an outlier.
Right.
Like, let's say like the top, just absolute maniacs in Kansas. I don't know. Like if you put them up with and I say maniac because I mean maniac. Like that's mad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and it's not about like who's better, who's worse, but
right.
If you put them on the same piece, like they were reborn at the same age, had only instinctual, like it wasn't in Kansas, it wasn't in Ohio, it wasn't wherever, and it was in a fake utopia of whitetail land. I wonder who would get it done.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, some sort of comp, like,
yeah.
In a parallel universe, they had the same opportunities, same place, same everything, same sign. A maniac from Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan, or a maniac from.
Yeah. I would say the guys from the pressure states. I think there's a parallel way to compare that with sports. When you look at the guys who are like the 1%ers in like the NBA, like they're already the 1%ers in the world of athletes, right? But the 1%ers of the league, whether it's the NFL, let's use the NFL. The 1%ers in the league, those guys are coming from like they're born with nothing, like they're born in poverty, broken families, like maybe their mom's a crack whore, like just saying, like that's a real thing, like those people, and then they're only. Like, that's their only option. That's their only way out is – I just have a ton of respect that those guys are
okay, like
those guys are molded
yeah.
to think, and they're calloused. They're molded, and like success is that that's what they want, and that's the only way. Like it's kind of maybe that's by comparison.
Well,
in my mind,
no,
it's like
so-
kind of the same.
So it'd be like the difference of like Steph Curry, like his dad was a professional athlete,
Yeah,
and like he like
yeah, riding school in BMWs.
and then you have LeBron James, single family or single mother,
Mm-hmm.
didn't come from much.
Right.
So I do see that comparison. It'd be like came from Pennsylvania, man. There's no opportunities.
Well, that's it.
And
like
then Iowa, like, oh man, there's big deer everywhere.
exactly.
Is what Yeah, I think that's an all right. It might be a little extreme, but I think it illustrates it well.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover here? I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of good hunters come from these states, and what triggered it was looking at the analytics of who's listening, who's watching, and it's like, well, these are the most high pressure states, and it's like these people, and I don't think it necessarily correlates just to pure hunting density. I think those are the people that there's more people that want to be the best there, or,
right.
the best at what they do,
Right.
in comparison to these other states. So I think that's
Well, here's the thing: if anyone listening knows, like one of those under the radar guys from Michigan or Pennsylvania, shoot us a DM. We'd love to get them on a podcast and talk about this specific topic with them to kind of get like on the boots opinion, like boots on the ground opinion of the topic.
Yeah, we would love that. And if this sounds like something like maybe you tune in this and you feel like I feel like that's kind of like me. Send us a message as well.
Yeah.
We, I think there'd be a lot. Selfishly, I think there'd be a lot to learn from someone like that. So, well, let's wrap it up. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next Tuesday.